Welcome to Prime Life. We call it Retirement 2.0. Leave each episode with tips and new ideas to help you navigate retirement in our new age. It's your time. Make it count.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not intended as medical, investment, or financial advice. We do not sponsor or endorse any of the individuals, companies, products, or services featured on this podcast. Any statements or opinions expressed are of the individual who makes them. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Prime Life Podcast. I'm Mary Crean, and I'm flying solo today, but I have an amazing guest. I think you've seen him and heard him before on that annuity show. He's a co-host, but he's much more than that. I'm here with Bruno Caron. He's a co-founder and managing partner of CM Risk Consulting LP. He helps insurance companies navigate through the rating process and capital needs, offering a full range of services spanning the rating cycle and agency expectations. Bruno, welcome to the Prime Life Podcast, and tell our audience a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Well, first, thank you for the invitation. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. As you said, I'm a partner at CM Risk Consulting, and we help insurance companies, mainly annuity providers, optimize their balance sheets, assess their capital needs, their reinsurance needs, their asset allocation, and we mainly do it through the prism of ratings, and that's our backbone. That's what we do.
So, as you know, I invited you on this podcast because on LinkedIn, I saw that you were writing some interesting things about one of our favorite topics, longevity risk. So, why don't you share a little bit about what that actually is?
Well, simply put, longevity risk is the risk of outliving your savings. It's the very simple problem of waking up one day at an older age and having just spent all your savings that you thought were enough. So longevity risk is the financial risk of living too long and depleting your savings.
Why is it so important to discuss?
Well, it's one of those risks that it's not a headline risk. It's a slow bleed, but it's real and it's significant. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so happy to discuss it today with you. But financially speaking, for retirees, it's not just one of those risks that you can check the box out of. It's literally a risk amplifier. It's a risk that exacerbates all of the risks that are out there. Think of inflation, market returns, healthcare costs. Whatever that risk is that keeps you up at night, well, that risk is exacerbated if in the eventuality that you live a significantly longer life than you expected. So that's why it is extremely important to plan for it and to understand the tools around it to mitigate it.
Let's maybe dive into that a little bit. What are some of the tools, perhaps, that you can share?
Well, their tools are coming from everywhere because generations are different. So some of our, from our parents' generation may have defined benefit pension plans. So that's one tool. So to answer quickly your question, the answer to your question would be lifetime income. And lifetime income comes in many, many flavors. One of them would be defined benefit pension plans. As you know, these schemes are virtually gone from the map. And I'm sure anyone entering the workforce today probably doesn't even know what a defined benefit pension plan is, but it's still out there. Some people still benefit from it, and it's definitely part of the equation. There are governmental programs such as Social Security in the U.S. and other countries have a similar. But for most, that's not necessarily enough to say I can live off of this, and that'll take care of all my expenses when I'm retired. The third option is annuities. Annuities come in many flavors, so it's extremely hard to to decipher what annuity. It's a huge umbrella of multiple products, multiple types of products. But in the end, annuities are the product, the suite of products, should I say, that can offer lifetime income.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we keep hearing that. Which generations are the most vulnerable? I think I can maybe guess a little bit based on what you've said, but even I know there are still some baby boomers and Gen X that they don't have defined pension programs.
Right. So longevity risk, that's why it's a little awkward because it's not a rich or poor issue. It's not it's not a demographic issue. It's an everyone issue. I would say it's an everyone issue except for the extremes. So people that are very poor and strictly living off governmental programs, I mean, lifetime income is not something that prints out money. So you need to prepare for your retirement. You need to put some money aside regardless. At the other extreme of the spectrum, extremely wealthy people who are on the Forbes list have more money they can spend for through retirement. Lifetime the longevity risk is not a concern for them. For everybody else, it's a concern. It's something that needs to be planned and that needs to be assessed. So to answer your question, yes, the current generation is at risk. And of course, everyone's personal situation is different. But yes, there are many baby boomers at risk right now, and all of the following generations also. So there's just too many unknowns. So every individual needs to be in a position of strength, especially when it comes to retirement, when you're not necessarily counting on employment revenues to basically live.
Yeah, and I know when you and I were talking a little bit earlier, what had come up was that, again, including maybe the super rich who don't have to worry. You said something that I keep it keeps resonating with me. Something, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but all it does is it takes a couple of hits that can really make even someone that has pretty good resources in not the best shape. We do have transfer of wealth. And so that's something some individuals may be saying, well, I know I'm going to get a good chunk of money, so I don't have to worry. But as you indicated at one point, what if a couple things in a row happen that are significant or catastrophic? Then what? How do you view that? And what's your point of view on that? And also bequests and working during retirement that can help mitigate some of these situations.
And we'll get that answer after a brief word from our commercial sponsors.
Nassau is always working harder to be your carrier of choice. We offer insurance products that can help you meet your retirement goals, such as protecting your savings, securing lifetime income, or paying for healthcare costs. We're dedicated to providing best-in-class service and are keeping things simple, and we'll have your back. We have around 400,000 policyholders and contract holders and have been doing this for a long time, 170 years, but we remain humble enough to always try to improve. For more information, visit nfg.com. Nassau insurance products are issued by Nassau Life and Annuity Company of Hartford, Connecticut, Nassau Life Insurance Company, East Greenbush, New York, or Nassau Life Insurance Company of Kansas, Overland Park, Kansas. Subsidiaries of Nassau Financial Group. Products are not available in all areas. Policyholder counts are for all Nassau companies as of September 30th, 2022, and are subject to change.
Well, the answer is all of the above. As you mentioned, you bring many good points here. I'll try to take them one by one. Bequests. So to me, it's not about telling people you need to leave a significant amount behind you, or it's not for me to say you should not leave anything behind you and utilize every single dollar that you have. My take is at least prepare for it. To me, the scenario where you're 65 years old, you retire on the day of your birthday, you have $1 million in the bank, you may die on the way out of your retirement party or at 90 years old. So you just don't know. So in that case where you unfortunately die on your way out of your retirement party, well, you leave $1 million to your kids, and the eventual and the outcome where you live until 90, well, you may have spent all your money. To me, that's not optimal. I think there's a better way to do it. Like, why would you leave so much money to your kids when they're in their prime earning years and nothing when they want to retire? but it's not a catastrophe. Like it's not the end of the world. The end of the catastrophe is if you're at 90 years old and you're still alive and you're still facing 10 years of living. So in that situation, longevity risk is somewhat negative bequest. And so so that's the outcome that actually have to, at the very least, mitigate. To your point, the road to get to older ages, that time span can be pretty long, and the eventuality where you have a healthcare issue at the same time as there's a market downturn, that can rock your boat. It doesn't take that much, and the chances of those things happening through that lifespan are pretty high. So my advice is always be in a position of strength. Always know where your sources of funds are coming from and how you can spend those, what amounts are coming back from a financial perspective, those financial assets. Think of your financial assets as your prior job. Your prior job was earning yourself a salary. Well, those assets are providing for an income. And if you don't have enough to provide, then what happens is you end up selling those assets at a later time in life. So David Macchia calls it the constraint investor, and that's a very good way to put it. That can work pretty well if markets go up forever,
Right.
but at the risk of stating the obvious, that's not a guarantee, and that's not something you can always count on. So the idea to be in a position of strength is extremely important.
Right. Because if you're needing to sell at a certain time and the market is not optimal, then you could be not in the best situation. Are you reading about trends where more individuals are retiring and then unretiring? So maybe they're working part time, or they are, versus maybe they would volunteer. Now maybe they're working a part time job. My husband is a public school teacher. This is not his first career, and he's actually older than I am. And there are a couple of individuals that he coaches with and that come in as substitute teachers that have retired and have unretired in a part time way to earn income. And I'm not saying it's just tied to teachers, it could be anything, but I'm hearing more of that. And I don't know, are you?
Absolutely. And there are just too many unknowns out there. People realize that they simply need more income, that the portfolio they have is just not enough. Some of those people, good for them because they can. Not everybody can. That's another possibility. The fact that some of those people are going back to in the workforce as part-time or subbing, whatever the shape is, that's good because they kind of foresee in the future what's coming up. So that's a good sign on their end. So my take on that is that work, or paying work or volunteer, whatever it is, can be very fulfilling at a later age, for income, for obvious reasons, but for many other reasons, to keep up, just to keep up with technology. That's probably a good thing
Absolutely.
to stay in the workforce, at least part-time, in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s. It's important to put some money aside in order to be in a position of strength again, and let that be a choice, not an obligation. If you, again, I think that may be the common denominator of this discussion, but always be in a position of strength. If you can do it, that's great. There's many reasons why you can and should, but in a position of strength, in a
Yeah, I
position
think,
where you can choose.
yeah, I think when we're younger, we think retirement's so far off. I don't have to worry about it. And as you know, as you move on in life, other things come up, other expenses. And so it's like, well, I still want to have a good time. So I'm not sure I'm willing to give up X amount of dollars to put aside, even because, retirement is so far away. Can you talk a little bit about mitigating longevity risks, some things that individuals can do, whether they're in retirement or they're thinking about retirement?
Well, for the younger crowd, let's call it, 60 and younger, it's fairly easy. Put more money aside. tax vehicles, tax savings vehicles. There's plenty of ways to do that. So very easy. The more you put aside, the more you pay down your debt, the more you'll have when it comes to retirement. When you're in retirement, what my take and my goal is to always make sure that you have an income vision of your portfolio. So people will know their net worth. Like that's their account balance, their CDs, their annuity balance, their mutual fund for like whatever that balance is. Add those up. This is how much I have. This is how much I'm worth. I could put a number, but what income does that generate? That's more of an unknown. And that's something that people don't necessarily think of. They think, oh, I have like 1 million and is enough, 2 million is enough, X is like 500,000 is enough, but have that income lens. And that's where annuities come in extremely handy, because that the annuities are they're somewhat of an hybrid between conceptually speaking, like contractually speaking, they're an insurance product. But conceptually speaking, they also act as an investment tool. So it's important to look at both. I spent my entire career analyzing companies. I've done it from a credit perspective, from a stock perspective. Regardless of what financial analysis you do, you look at a myriad of statements and studies. But at the end of the day, pretty much all comes down to a balance sheet and an income statement. And as a stock analyst, you'll put a little more focus on the income statement. As a credit analyst, you'll probably put a little more focus on the balance sheet, but a little bit. We're talking 60-40 one way and 60-40 the other way. There's no such thing as ignoring one or the other. Both go hand in hand. You need to have a full picture. You need to have both. And that's one of the biggest mistakes the retirees make, is they know their balance sheet. They don't know what that income statement will look like. And that's an important thing. And that's where annuities can really kick in and be really, really helpful in analyzing that.
I do have an annuity question. Before we get to that, you said something interesting and very poignant, which is it's probably a good idea to minimize your debt, pay off your debt, especially at a certain point where it's harder to pay back as you get older. For example, if you are, and it isn't for everyone, it's not hard for everyone. However, it's better to go into retirement with less debt than more debt. And so I'm glad you brought that point up, because I think that is something to consider. But you did, when we were back and forth with some questions. So I'm gonna read a question that you sent, which I love. So what can make annuities awkward? I love how you phrase that. And I was like, I'm going to read it just like that, because I do love it. And I think it would kind of help bring about some points that I think you're very good at making.
Well, that's a good point. And the first one, as I mentioned, conceptually, they're an hybrid between an insurance product and an investment product. There's characteristics of both. There's risk pooling for like an insurance. There's investment gains. Looking at both is it can make it a little awkward. The other thing is annuities are actually insuring against a positive event. Now think of all of the other insurance products that are out there: car insurance, home insurance, life insurance. They're all insuring against something that's negative. Like if you're going to die, if you're going to crash your car, if you're going to burn your house, these are all negative events. So, longevity insurance or annuities are there to protect yourself for a positive event. That's living longer. So it's not a dynamic that you're used to as a consumer. The other dynamic that's very different is the somewhat, I call it medium frequency, medium severity dynamic. So for most insurance products, such as home, life, car insurance, all of these products are all structured in a way where the consumer pays a small premium and gets a large benefit in a very unlikely outcome. or a very unlikely scenario, such as burning your house down, crashing your car, dying early. But lifetime income annuities don't work that way. It's you get your benefits, or at least part of it, depending on the structure of the annuity. But you get your benefits through life in sequence in small installments, and you pay an upfront premium that's pretty hefty. So it is, again, it's a very different dynamic. It's a different feel. So people are not necessarily uh, pushed towards that particular dynamic, but it's essential. Again, at the risk of repeating it, longevity risk is a risk multiplier, and it's a slow bleed, and it's something that can really haunt your years, your later years in life, which is something you absolutely want to avoid.
What's the top question you get asked by individuals that know that you have a very good handle on longevity risk? What's the number one question you get?
How to mitigate it? I really went out of my way to try this, because annuities are one way to do it, but there's other financial ways to structure such products. Lifetime income can come in other flavors as well. So how to mitigate it, and how to what how to view your portfolio. I really don't mean this in a way where everything you learn, if you've heard of, if you've been thought of risk reward, different asset classes, these are all good. Again, I'm not throwing any of that away. What I'm saying is that have a view of income of your portfolio. What income does it generate? Income comes in many flavors. Stocks have dividends, bonds have coupons, real estate has, can have recurring income from it as well. So, what's that income? Have that, and that will give you, that'll give you some of the, at least part of your answers. And if that's not enough, then that's where, at the very least, you should consider like an annuity, and try to say, hey, if I put some of my money towards an annuity, what income does that generate? How does that look? So yeah, I think that's a crucial thing to look at.
So as we get down to the end of our conversation, before we ask our last question that we ask all of our guests, what are 3 key takeaways that you'd like for our audience to get from our conversation today?
So key takeaways: longevity risk, extremely important. It's not a check the box. It's a slow bleed, and that's the problem. Like it's not a catastrophe. It's not a 1-day catastrophe. It's a very long dated issue, and sometimes it can be a process of getting there and having that feeling of always having less, and that could be that could be a problem at your later years. So longevity risk, extremely important. So that's number one. Number two, have an income view of your portfolio. The balance sheet is good. I'm not saying it's not important. It's very important, but an income view is good. Just like financial analysis that is performed on corporations, both are important. It's true also for individuals. And so, number three, annuities are an avenue, something to consider, to look at. I mean, and they come in many flavors, but it is something to look at, and hopefully there'll be some innovation in the space over the next. We've already seen it left and right, but it takes time for people to, and for those products to get to the appropriate shelves. But it's coming. To me, it is so simple. Everyone I know, drives a car that is worth less than their annual earnings. Like if someone's earning $50,000 a year, they're probably driving a car that's worth less than $50,000, 100,000, 250,000, a million, whatever that number is. But people always get car insurance in case something happens. Would it make sense to have some sort of risk pooling for 1 year's worth of living, 10 years worth of living? it's a significant amount, and it's not something that should be downplayed. It's something that should be considered and very well thought of, because when it's too late, it's not the right time to go back to work. As we talked about in our discussion, it can be very good to work in later years for multiple reasons. You want to make sure it's a choice. It's not something that is forced upon, and sometimes it may not even be a possibility depending on age and condition. So
Yeah, that's a really good point. Bruno, you're a very successful individual. You're an author, you're a podcast co-host. I didn't read all of your credentials, being an actuary and all that stuff. You could do anything that you want. Why do you wake up every day and do what you do?
no, that's a good question. At the end of the day, I always think of fundamental needs. You have to have a purpose in life. You build an expertise here and there. So I always want to sharpen up those expertise, and people really drive me. So is it clients? Is it podcast? Is it people reaching out on social media? Whatever it is that really drives me, and having an impact on people always drives me. But that would be what gets me waking up in the morning.
I love that answer. If individuals want to get in touch with you, what's the best way? We will put everything in our show notes.
LinkedIn's good. It's always a good way to do it. You can check out our CM Risk Consulting website, cmriskconsulting.com. Fairly easy. So these are usually the good avenues to get in touch with me.
Bruno, thank you for joining me today on the Prime Life podcast. To our listeners, thank you for listening and downloading. We've had significant increases from 24 to 25, and I know we're on to 26, so I really think 26 is going to be a better year. Thank you. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Tell the podcast. Share it with your friends, and everyone have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Remember to subscribe to the Prime Life podcast anywhere you find podcasts. You can find all of our episodes, contact information, and more on our website, primelifepodcast.com. Stay connected with us. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.